That's like tip number 1 for AutoMod. Get rid of the dongs.
Yes, oh my goodness.
Hello and welcome to Just Streaming. Today on the show, we have a very special episode where we're going to be talking about the importance of moderation online and in Twitch communities. My name is Serge Jaeger, joined as always by Chris Fuji-Gamble. And today we have special guest, Lauren, better known on the internet as LadyAtarka.
Hi, everybody.
Excellent. So for people who don't know you, do you want to give a quick introduction on, well, who you are?
I'm LadyAtarka. I'm typically found in a lot of Magic Channel streams as a moderator. I have been moderating about 6 years now, which Serge actually made me realize last night. And I'm like, oh goodness, I've been doing this for a while.
So real quick, what size of channels do you have experience moderating in?
I have both very small channels, like I moderate for some of my friends as well who just like hobby stream. But I also have very large channels, like I have moderated in the past for Magic the Gathering themselves, which is a very large mothership company. And then we have a bunch of partnered streamers like Gabby Sparks, Louis Scarp Vargas. So those are some pretty big channels.
So viewership from single digits up to single thousand digits, tens of thousands?
Tens of thousands.
All right, so that's a pretty big range of experience, and that's fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited to get your insight onto these topics.
And I hope to be helpful.
Awesome. So I suppose the most important question to have here is, what is moderation? When people are asking what Twitch moderation is, do you have some insight you could give to that?
So I would say the short version is, honestly, moderation is a reflection of the streamer. So the streamer kind of, if they want a happy, fun community, we moderate to that. If they want more of like adult content, swearing type of adult content, we focus, make sure not to over moderate on that. So it honestly depends on the type of flavor of chat the streamer themselves want. And so, yeah.
And when it says moderate, what type of actions are you taking to get behavior to go in certain directions?
So let's say we want to have the type of moderation I prefer really is want to make sure everyone is included. We don't want any derogatory wording. Obviously take care of the LGBTQ type aspect, POC type aspect. So we try to avoid people saying words that would offend such groups. So, when someone starts to step out of bounds, typically what we start off with first is a warning and, just delete their message if it's not an ideal type of chatter we want to have. And if they continue to push those boundaries, then a timeout, 10 minutes, be like, hey, really think about if this is a community for you. And then it gets to the extreme where we do inevitably ban an individual because they just push that line too far, and we do not allow that kind of behavior.
I think it's important to realize like moderators are there to help you as a streamer kind of have the community and the space that you want to have. And I think LadyAtarka did a fantastic job of kind of describing that.
Not only do we make sure all the bad individuals stay out, we also help move the conversation forward or, help increase chat interaction. If chat's starting to talk about something maybe we shouldn't talk to, we're very good at changing the conversation to something else. So not only do we make sure chat's safe, we also make sure chat is very active. So having very active mods is really good too.
Absolutely. And I see that all the time. Mods are the people who welcome people when they come in.
Mm-hmm.
Answering the FAQs if they're not quite enough to warrant having a bot for. So it's a lot of that unpaid, sometimes unseen work that is so appreciated. So why do we moderate? Why is Twitch the space that requires moderators? And why is it so much work to create these spaces that we want to make?
The chat, as much as the streamer may or may not like it, is a reflection of the streamer and the type of people you want around in your stream. So
I think a lot of people are under the false impression that the first person an audience member sees is the streamer, and that's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes the first people that they interact with in a community is the chat. So I could be sitting there, I could be totally tunneled in on a task, whatever it is, regardless of the game, and not speak for, 10 seconds up to several minutes or something like that. And someone will come in for the first time, they'll say hi, they'll look at the chat and they'll see what people are talking about. And if it's like ASCII dongs or like profanity or racial slurs, they're gonna be like, wow, that's the type of space this is. Regardless of what I'm doing or what I'm saying, that's what they see. And I think that's where the moderators come in, because the streamer can't be watching chat all the time, right?
Exactly. They need to be able to, do the game or whatever activity they're doing. Like, for example, the first streamer that I moderated for altered magic cards. So they were painting. They can't exactly watch the stream or the chat at all times. So, and also, like, as a viewer myself with the moderation background, if there is when I test out a streamer that I want to actually start watching, I actually watch their chat for a few minutes and be like, is this actually a community I want to hang out in? And if they do, then I start chatting and interacting with the streamer in the chat. But if, like you said, if it's just like constant profanity, putting people down for absolutely no reason, I don't want to be a part of that.
I think you were hinting earlier that you as a streamer or as a moderator don't really get control over who comes into your chat room. There's a large variety of people out in the world and the internet, and anyone can stumble onto your stream. It's public. What you do have a chance to do is decide who stays in your chat. And so that's kind of the dividing line that the moderators help you with.
That's deep. I like that. So we've talked about channel health, and we've talked about the importance of moderators when it comes to shaping conversations and stuff like that. There's also an unfortunate reality of Twitch, and that's abuse, where sometimes people don't show up and they have good intentions when they're talking, that those need to be shaped slightly. Sometimes people show up in a channel just to cause havoc. You're nodding along with that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of that.
And when abuse is showing up, does that change your approach as a moderator?
So there are some Twitch streams that I do get too comfortable in because, like, they're very well established. The chat behaves himself. If it's a chat that I very rarely ever have to do mod actions in, you kind of relax a little bit. And then suddenly something catches you at the corner of your eye and you're like, oh, we got spam bot, here we go. Or, yeah, I see that face. You've had the spam bot before. A few times. So typically with, like, if we do get a spam bot, we'll turn it into emo only mode or like sub only mode for a moment to try to get a handle in on that. And if someone's just straight up being malicious and I know that they're not going to be a good member of the community, a lot of times those will get an immediate ban and we just don't have to worry about that particular individual anymore.
I want to keep going deeper down that rabbit hole, but I think there's some more important, like, foundational conversations to have before we dive too deep into like the strategies and stuff like that. So we've talked about what mods do and the importance of moderation in a community. I guess there's a question a lot of people have, maybe a little too early sometimes, which is, how did you become a mod in the communities that you moderate for?
So like I mentioned before, the very first streamer I moderated for was a card alterer. Unfortunately, they don't stream much at all anymore, which is kind of a bummer. But then, being in that community for a while bled into Gabby Sparks' community, where I really enjoyed her community. They're very welcoming and loving, and I love them so much. But how I ended up being a mod there is I was very active in the chat. I became friends with actually quite a few of the moderators. And eventually, I think about a year or so after watching Gabby, I did get the mod sword, which then led into Luis Scott Vargas giving me the mod sword, and it kind of pile drove into that direction when it came to at least the Magic community aspect of it.
Was it something that you applied for, or did they reach out and ask you if you wanted to help out?
So in the Gabby and Luis aspect, they asked me if I wanted to. Now, for your friend Ben, I actually applied for that position. So there are a couple different aspects. It kind of depends on the streamer, but like I said, with Ben Ulmer, they had a application process that I went through, answered all the questions, had a little interview and then was moderated.
Oh, dang. Like a whole job interview process. How official.
Yeah, basically. So although in my aspect, because I was already, pretty established in the mod group, the interview was very short, and It was like, okay, here's your sword, basically. But no, with like Gabby and Luis, I had been friends with their mods already. I had met them at Grand Prix when those were a thing. And so I guess I kind of had an in-person interview in that aspect where they can tell that I actually cared about the community and wanted to help it grow and keep it a kind and open area. So, I mean, there is a couple avenues to become a mod again. Being active in chat, being a kind individual, being open, greeting the new people that come into chat, that kind of stuff is usually a good way to get in good with the streamer themselves.
Well, it also seemed like being known in the community was also really important.
Well, at least with Ben's, that being known in the community helped with that one.
Sure. Anything to add on that, Fuji?
My mind was stuck at asking terrible joke questions like, so you're saying that the correct way to become a mod is not to ask in chat repeatedly, can I be a mod?
Oh, yes.
The first time you show up, right? Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, do not ask to be a mod. That just looks bad on you. It almost to me, when I feel like people ask to be a mod, like out of nowhere, they want clout or something. They want the power, and it's not all about the power. It is, again, to cultivate a community you want to be in.
I had been streaming for, oh goodness, maybe 3 to 5 years with my friends at Loading Ready Run. So an established channel, had their own moderators. I'd been doing events at Desert Bus. Again, already a moderated community. And I thought to myself, I should start streaming. I'm just going to turn the camera on and see what happens. And because I already had an established audience, when I started my first stream, I already had the numbers to become a partner, which is very unusual. I didn't have any mods. I didn't know what to do. And this is truly unfortunate, but literally in my first ever stream, I was already getting trolled. I got fake donations. I had people showing up, just kind of being awful in the chat, and I panicked. And luckily, longtime moderators for the Loading Ready Run community were in chat. And I was very quickly able to sort of like throw out swords and be like, quick, save me, help. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm totally overwhelmed. And I was really shocked and disappointed at just how quick and out of nowhere abuse can show up. Even in a place that like I already trusted people. I was brand new. I didn't think there'd be, why would people come up and insult somebody who'd literally never streamed before on their own channel? And I was very quickly disappointed in the internet that day.
Same experience when I stream very rarely, but my first stream was like, oh, hey friends, sword.
Yeah. But I guess this leads us to an important question, which is, in your experience, when should you get your first moderator for your channel?
Before you start streaming. Like, I kid you not, day 0. It doesn't matter if it's just a friend who supports you. To be perfectly honest, especially when it comes to, the first couple streams where you have single digits, the friend is able to handle that. But you need a mod day 0, because especially if you want to become a good streamer, you need to focus on what you're doing more so than making sure chat's behaving themselves. So definitely need a mod day 0.
I know, Fuji, you've talked a little bit about maybe streamers managing their own chat in the beginning when it's slower. I mean, have these experiences changed your opinion on that at all?
Yeah, that was a very surprising answer for me, because I was under the impression it's like, oh, well, if you've got 10 viewers, you're probably reading your chat and able to handle that yourself. But you maybe could be your own moderator, but like you should be focusing on streaming. And if you can get someone to do it for you, then I definitely agree that that's a much better approach.
I think it's worth mentioning that moderators do more than just watch chat and just delete nasty messages, and sometimes it's activity. And those are the sorts of things that as a streamer, you're not always around to do. So for example, on my channel now, I don't want to say I've offloaded it, because that's not necessarily the best word to do, but my mods take care of all of the commands for my channel. So if something is enough of an FAQ, they'll spin up a bot command for it really quickly and have it go out there. My mods are so fond of automation that they've even moderated sassing me now, where they're like, okay, we could roast Surge, or we can make a command and everyone in chat could call it and just roast Surge over and over. And I know not all streamers are comfortable giving that level of power to the moderators, because of course it's a business and sometimes that's scary, but I know channels let them manage clips, pull them down for highlights. They'll sometimes even stream title, like all kinds of stuff can be sent off, allowing the streamer to focus more on the broadcasting entertainment part. And then the moderators, in addition to, you know, kicking out trolls and putting them in the sea, are also basically managing this, like the entire stream from behind the scenes. Are there?
Yeah, that's very well said. That's exactly everything. Now, I will say it is a good idea to make sure you have at least a mod or two that is able to change your stream title, stream game, because sometimes it doesn't load the first time and you don't want to keep bothering the streamer and be like, hey, it's the wrong game. You're not playing Magic anymore. You're playing Minecraft. So I would absolutely like pick a couple of mods to be able to do that. I wouldn't have all of them, because then sometimes like more than one are trying to fix something and then it kind of blows up a little bit. So definitely at least have a couple, I would say, like head mods, as that's kind of loosely put as, in my opinion anyway.
Well, to that end, something that I've done at my channel at least is we have a secret Discord back channel area where the mods can talk to each other. And if there's something that comes up, they're like, I've got this, you've got this. When they're changing commands or updating stuff, you're nodding your head along. You're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Pretty much all of the channels I'm in do have the secret Discord where we all, you know, try to manage all that as well. It's very common space, and it's actually a very good tool to have to be able to at least have the moderators talk amongst themselves and not exactly have chat involved in those conversations all the time.
I think it might be important to bring up, like, you're talking about a channel for moderators coordinating with themselves. How do you coordinate with the streamer in those situations?
Typically, the streamer is also in that particular mod chat, because especially if they have the Discord set up, most streamers I know have like a little notification if the mods are kind of going off, and you know, if we need to get a hold of them, we just ping them real good. But typically we don't really, at least in my experience, I haven't been able to have to bother a streamer about mod actions in a chat in a very long time.
Sometimes I'll go through the mod channel afterwards and just take a look and be like, wow, you were way busier than I thought. But it's very rare for me, like on an individual call. Typically as the streamer, and I mean, maybe my mods will disagree too, and they'll want me to be more active in it. It's more, here's my hope and expectation for policy. And then the mods are more responsible for enforcement. So I'll be like, hey, there's too much profanity lately. Can we fix this? Because I tend to try and be very family friendly, or it's not that bad. Or I'll be like, let's try and give people one more strike before we go to auto ban. Even if the red flag is there, maybe give them a chance. But I don't know. This could be different from channel to channel, but I tend to be fairly hands off in what happens. I trust my mods to do a tremendous amount, and sometimes I feel very guilty about it because they're doing a lot of work. But it's like, God, the amount of hours that already go into streaming with being on camera and the behind the scenes work of setting things up and making everything happen, the extra admin time, the amount of work that mods do to take off of like the load I'm already carrying is unbelievable. I couldn't do what I do without them. Not even from creating a safe space, but just to trust people to handle a huge portion of my business and be hands off is huge for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that trusted team is very, very important. And again, basically all the communities I'm in work about the same as yours, Serge, where we have a lot of the streamers will be like, hey, well, we have this in writing. Here's what I expect from you. Here's how I want chat to look like. Enforce that. Have fun.
When you're brought on as a mod, or when you bring someone new onto the mod team, how do you get them up to speed? What kind of direction is expected from the streamer, and also from the other existing moderators maybe helping out with that? Of how did they know, oh, in this situation I'm supposed to do this?
So typically, at least for me, let's pretend I'm a new mod. Like when I first joined Ben's team, I didn't do too many mod actions to start. I kind of kept an eye on like, okay, it's like training for a new job, essentially. You're watching how the other moderators handle things. Again, most streamers have like a PDF doc that you read. Here's the big absolute no-nos. Here is what we love to see, what we hate to see. You kind of read on that. Watch the other moderators that are on your team. Always ask, if you have questions, ask a streamer, ask veteran moderators, and you just kind of follow from there. And then once you start to realize, okay, here's how it works here, then you act accordingly to that. So again, it's almost like on-the-job training.
It might surprise you to hear that, like, we literally have onboarding documentation for my channel.
Yeah, a lot of the bigger streamers that I have onboarding documentation, and it's really nice to have, to be perfectly honest. And typically, like, if there is a streamer that doesn't have that kind of documentation, I just kind of start off with, okay, well, here's how I moderate for these channels. I will use these techniques. If they don't like it, then I will shape it to, once they communicate with me, what kind of techniques that they want.
The big thing is some document saying, here's what's good, here's what's bad, and here's kind of how I expect people who are breaking the rules to be treated.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, at least in my experience, that's the easiest way to jump in as a new mod and just, run with it.
To add on to that, not only is it here's the chat expectations, but here's the software you're going to need. Here's login information if you want to do commands, if you need to register anything. Here's how our Discord channels work. We actually have 3 different moderation channels just for different conversations to segment them, from like day-to-day activities to policy to like general chat, to break it down. And one other thing that at least my channel does, and I don't know how common it is we actually have 2 moderators volunteer to be mentors. So instead of asking a question out to the void, because there might be, I don't know, half a dozen to dozens of moderators there, it's here are the 2 people who you can ask questions to directly, and they're going to be a little bit faster to turn it around to make sure you're never feeling lost. But yeah, like literally like onboarding at a new job. At least that's how we structured it over here. But I imagine it's probably pretty good advice for your team if you're trying to get people up to speed anywhere, right?
Oh, that is actually a really good idea. I may have to snatch that.
Totally.
I was going to say, like, typically, like in Gabby's chat, you can kind of tell who the head mod is, and you kind of ask them and then kind of work your way down. But I feel like, yeah, having point people is a pretty good idea, and I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, do it. Please help yourself. That's the whole point of this, right? Is hand out resources to people. So I think this leads nicely to the next question, because we talked about how do you onboard somebody. When you're part of a moderation team, when do you know it's time to grow your team?
Typically, when you can start to tell if particular moderators are not showing up nearly as often, like if there's scheduling conflicts, if you start to realize that the moderator team is struggling keeping up with chat, like if the community is starting to grow, you need more eyeballs to watch chat. Typically, once your community starts to grow, there isn't, I honestly can't think of like a perfect math equation, like 1 mod per 100 people that there really, I feel like, is no perfect equation for it. It's just kind of, when you start to realize things are starting to fall back a little bit, ask your mod team if they're starting to burn out a little bit. And that's kind of when you start to bring in more people and get input from them. So communication is super key, making sure that the streamers and the moderators know how they're both feeling.
And you touched on an important word there, which is burnout. And I know moderators, unfortunately, are sort of like the first line of defense for a bunch of awful stuff that happens online. Do you have any tips to protect moderators from things like burnout and the constant exposure to nastiness?
You just kind of have to realize yourself, I had burned out for a little bit, so I, let my streamers know, hey, I'm going to back off a little bit, or just enter lurk mode. If things go out of hand, I'll jump in. So again, this also just leads back again to communication, realizing yourself, like, am I enjoying this anymore? Do I just need to take a break, get off Twitch for like a week or something? But again, you need to communicate that with your streamer. Like, for example, when I had to go through a big exam that I had just a couple weeks ago, I'm like, hey, I don't have the energy to moderate for a little bit. So I'm going to, take that back a little bit, not burn out, kind of take care of yourself, kind of a thing.
You were saying that you realized this yourself and proactively reached out to the streamer. do you think there's anything streamers could do on their end to head that off? Like, would it be good for them to be reaching out to their mods on a regular basis, asking questions, or is that just annoyance at that point?
No, I actually, at least for me personally, I can't speak for anybody, but like I love chatting with my streamers that I take care of. And when I realize that they're checking up on me too, that they do care about me as well, which is really nice. And honestly, that also helps avoid burnout as well. If I realize the streamer cares about us as much as we care about them, then, I feel more energized and more ready to go to take care of their community. So it's almost like a weird friendship level kind of thing. Once you become a moderator, you really do start to actually build friendships with the streamers as well.
Got like a big dumb grin on my face now. Yeah, I try and be thankful enough. I hope it always comes across.
A thank you, honestly, really does go a long way.
All right, now Fuji, we're going to lean on your Twitch angle here, which is, are there certain tools, are there certain built-in features that people could be using to help with moderation that I might not be aware of?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is the auto mod, which tries its best. It's something to definitely look into and play around with. Like, there's a variety of settings of different levels for different kind of things that it can catch. You would be foolish not to at least explore those. In a lot of conversations I've had with moderators, it definitely doesn't catch everything, and it can definitely catch too much. And so it's not an entire solution, but it is a tool to help your moderators. And I would encourage you to try it out and communicate extensively with your moderators on whether it's actually being helpful or not, and configuring it to the right level, because there is a decent level of customization in deciding what it catches. And as moderators, they have the ability to add blocked or permitted terms to it, which can also be really useful, especially when you're getting spammed a lot with a similar message. You can just add a block term and it's gone. Those kind of two tools are the really big ones.
Well, before we move to the next one, I'd love to hear LadyAtarka's thoughts on automod.
It's a love-hate relationship, more love, of course, especially with a lot of the larger Twitch chats that I babysit. Sometimes this chat's going by too fast and it's kind of hard for me to read through everything or peruse through everything, but then you just see that little pop-up like, approve or deny. I'm like, sweet, easy. So I personally love AutoMod. Dix, who is a mod around the area.
D-I-X for what it's worth.
Yes,
it's his last name.
D-I-X.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That poor fellow, his name got caught on AutoMod
all the time.
So
yeah.
much. that it was kind of funny to grieve him with that one though.
I have two things to add for AutoMod, which I think are great tips for starting streamers. One, you can blacklist any word. If there's a political conversation or something that's happening in a region and you don't want to hear about it, or Game of Thrones spoilers, Avengers spoilers, you can just add all of those blocked words to your chat and not even worry about it. I know Game of Thrones, I had a streamer friend who blocked the word Stark and Starks from the chat just so it never happened. And that can be really helpful, even if it's not profanity. Sometimes there's words you just don't ever want to see happen in your chat. I know another big streamer who plays a ton of Slay the Spire. Name is Jorbs. He's actually blacklisted the word potions in chat, or pots, or any abbreviation, because people only ever use that to ask questions to Backseat. And he's like, no, we just can't say this word anymore. And it seems rather innocuous, but if you want a word gone from your community, poof, very easy. And probably the next simplest tip that you can do to remove a lot of abuse in your channel is block special characters. You only have to get one giant ASCII dong in your chat to realize we can probably get rid of anything over 15 special characters. It doesn't make sense. People are never going to use it in a legitimate way. And if you don't want to see dongs, just get rid of ASCII. There's no reason to allow it.
But those ones are super easy to ban because, it takes up so much space. You're like, oh, hey, poop.
Yeah.
The one caveat I will mention that confused me as a new user of AutoMod is that when you blacklist a term, it's not like it goes into review. It's just gone. You don't get a second chance to look at the context. So if there is a word that is questionable, you might not want to blacklist it because you won't have a chance to let it through if it's a good use of it. There aren't a lot of tools that I'm personally aware of, as I haven't really worked in the chat space for a while. The one thing that I do remember at some point being fairly useful was the ability to delay chat. Your ability to view chat gets delayed, which seems like something that no one would ever want. The big thing of streaming is that you want to interact with your chat and have a real-time conversation with them. Why would you delay your view of chat? And the answer is because it lets your moderators remove things before you even see it. Sometimes people in chat can get kind of mean and can really find the one thing to poke you at about that just ruins your day. And if you delay chat by a couple seconds, then sure, your interaction with them slows down, but you give your moderators and auto mod time to remove something and you never see that message that could have ruined your stream. It's something to be aware of.
LadyAtarka, earlier you had mentioned things like emote only mode or sub mode. For people who aren't familiar, you want to very quickly touch on that because those are also Twitch tools that people could use for moderation.
Twitch actually does have a lot of naturally built-in tools. There's the slow mode. So, for example, if you chat, then you have to wait X amount of time to be able to chat again. So it definitely bogs it down a bit. Emote only mode, just to, if you just need the words to stop for a little bit, throw that on. Chat typically enjoys emote only mode for a little bit. But yeah, Twitch does have a lot of tools in there, especially once you actually become a mod, you are able to see those tools a lot better. So you kind of just like click on your username, your mod settings, and they have like little fun tools you can play with in chat.
There are a large number of commands in chat that honestly I forget about most of them. Emote only, sub only, slow mode are all very useful. Then there is the more esoteric, no repeated lines mode.
People are spamming, yeah.
To prevent the like very straightforward spam. And yet there is also the Twitch feature of chants where everyone says the same thing repeatedly. So, interesting dichotomies here. Yeah, I would definitely encourage you, if you are a moderator, to familiarize yourself with all of the commands in chat. I know personally I find it a lot faster and easier to type /ban username rather than trying to click a name scrolling by in chat.
With Twitch letting out when you hover over chat, it does pause it for a little bit, so you can actually click pretty quickly a lot of times.
Cool. So, LadyAtarka, are there any third-party tools that you as a moderator have used outside of what Twitch is using to make your job easier?
Yeah, so I personally use Better Twitch TV. I've been using that basically since day one. A few of my mod friends use Chatty. I personally didn't care for it too much. It looked like a DOS program to me.
All right.
I don't know. I'm a very aesthetic person, I suppose, but I've really enjoyed Better Twitch TV. It's just a little add-on you can throw on, and I don't know. It's worked great for me for 6 years. So.
And what is this adding that you don't have access to normally?
If you are a mod to a channel, next to their username, they have like 3 little buttons. It's the ban button, a quick timeout button, and I was going to look over at your chat. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have that. So I don't remember what the third button is.
You must not use it very often, right? Yeah.
No, the ones I use the most, obviously, is the ban button or the timeout button.
Okay.
Oh, it's a delete now. It's delete.
Oh,
That's
okay,
it.
okay.
That's it. It's delete.
Right,
So
and the advantage there is it clears one message, whereas timeout deletes all their messages, right?
Correct. It would delete all of their past messages. So, like, if they weren't being awful the one time, you just delete the message real quick. If they were awful a few times in a row, time them out. It'll wipe out their chat history for some period of time.
I feel obligated to mention here that without Better Twitch TV, this is a native Twitch feature now that you can enable for moderators, but I do imagine that Better Twitch TV probably has additional options in there as well that it's useful.
Sorry, Fuji, as the streamer, I have to enable it, or the moderator can enable it?
As a moderator, each individual moderator can enable it in their mod settings.
Oh.
I believe it's just called show mod icons, and it shows those 3 icons next to every message.
I wonder if it's just there naturally for me now, but because, again, I've been using
Sure.
better Twitch TV for so long, and I just never noticed.
I had no idea that that was a thing.
One thing that I've noticed, which has been really nice, is the Twitch has a feature where you can click on someone's username, and you can look at just their chat history, and some people may not know, you can add mod notes to that person. So you could be like, hey, this person was kind of not that great, but not quite enough to ban. Keep an eye on this person for XYZ reasons. So that's actually kind of nice. So we do have notes on some people.
Does it show moderation history too? Like this person has been timed out X times?
Yes. Oh. It's like X moderator timed out this person for Y period of time kind of thing. So it's pretty nifty.
One final question. I know that Twitch has a built-in report tool. Does that come up often? Do you feel it's a worthwhile action to take the time to report somebody when they're awful, or do you just ban and move on with your life?
No, I typically report them as well, especially since sometimes chatters don't like the fact that they were timed out or banned, and they'll whisper you not nice things, and so you extra report them. So that's another thing to kind of watch out for Burnout too, because sometimes people get into your whispers and try to really get into your head and not make you feel that great. So,
speaking of third-party tools, you mentioned chatbots earlier being useful. Like what kind of things do you look for there that is the most useful sort of things to add to chatbots?
For chatbots, again, commands are really great because it can get annoying to constantly type out the answers to, like what Serge said before, frequently asked questions. Right. Or like if that streamer is sponsored that day, being able to not have to type all that out is great. So like having all that stuff taken care of, where all I have to type out is ! Sponsor, or whatever the word is to make the bot activate. It's really nice.
Moderation, again, isn't only enforcement, and it isn't only dealing with trolls or policing people. Sometimes it is communication and making jobs easier. So yeah, great call from Fuji on the helpful side of bots for FAQ. Sponsorship bot messages actually is often a requirement of a sponsorship contract. You have to have it automatically set up to post every 15 or 30 minutes. That's just like in the contract you sign. So
right.
That's, if you're a new streamer, look into a bot really quickly. I use Nightbot is the one that handles that for me. I know there's MTG bot. There's like I don't know what the other ones are that people are using. I picked one on like day 2 and I never really looked back.
Mooser's bot's pretty good.
What is it?
Mooser's bot, like a moose.
Oh my God. Okay. Huh. Yeah. And those bots can also help post messages like follow me on Twitter, if that's a thing you want to promote. It can do
all the socials, really.
Yeah. Well, a very popular one is a quote bot. So like fun little community engagement things. If there's an action that your favorite streamer does, if they fall or if they laugh or if they do like a silly little verbal tick or something like that, you can track that and have a fun way for the audience to interact, which it's weird that you'd think of your community wanting to interact with a bot, but it can be a lot of fun. So for example, my moderators, actually, I want to give a shout out to Thirsty Kitty, which is quite the name to shout out right now, who built a Markov chain from my quote bot, and we called it Snurge, which is my evil persona online. And we now have a bot command where you can summon Snurge to come up and just shout out random gibberish. And the community likes it. It's a channel point sync. It's some fun interaction. And it also gives me, as a performer, sometimes improv points to be like, oh, Snurge, way to go trying to light innocent people on fire again, or, whatever comes out. So yeah, bots can be a very fun thing to add to your community as well, or a very useful tool. It's not necessarily always about enforcement. So great point, Fuji. All right, let's talk very quickly about streamer tools. These are the things that you as the streamer can do. And I want to keep this relatively short, but I think the most important thing you can do as a streamer, especially if you're getting large-scale abuse, is make sure you familiarize yourself with your alerts. One of the big things that's happening recently is hate raids. which is awful, and I hate to see it. One of the big things that you as a streamer do to interact with your community and to encourage certain interaction, be it follows or subs or back and forth between cameras, between channels, is to set up like large alerts that show up on your screen. And if all of a sudden I Hate Surge 69 raids you and brings a bunch of people, while the moderators can handle the chat portion of that, if there's a bot that's saying awful things, they can ban it, they can do it in a slow mode. If you're giving that hate space on your screen, you're seeing it, all of a sudden your audience is seeing. Your mods can't help you for that. So knowing how to separate your alerts, knowing how to quickly turn on or turn off your alerts is a very important way to be able to minimize that. And it sucks that it's happening, but that's something that you can do to protect yourself. Similarly, much like delaying chat, you can actually set up a delay and a review for any notifications that go up. So if you have a text-to-speech for donations or bits of a certain size, and you don't want something awful to go up, you can actually have it pop up, look at it, review it, and then say, yes, I want that to be broadcast to my audience. And it sucks that you need to put that step in between you and getting paid. But if it's a difference, again, between being able to broadcast safe and showing something that you're okay showing your audience and not, excellent to have that up there. And mind you, you can change those settings as it goes. I mean, if your stream is fine most of the time, let it run. And if something awful happens, you can quickly go, like if you get follow botted, just turn off your follow alerts, but let the other ones keep going. And it might be able to help you out there.
Yeah, I think especially following as an action that is free for people to do is the really big one that gets the most abuse. Beyond that, I believe like cheering and tips where you can get in for a cent or $1 is the next most common. Most of those companies that offer alert products, almost all of them have a like panic pause button that just pauses all notifications. And I think personally that's a really great way to kind of deal with an issue. If you're streaming and this is coming in and you don't know what to do, hit the pause button immediately. Give yourself some time to think and rest easy knowing that all of those notifications are still there and you can go through and refire them and see them come up on stream, and you haven't lost anything by doing that. You've just given yourself some time to view the problem and approach it without having all of this going on.
An important thing that Fuji was talking about for donation and bit alerts, value your time and set minimum thresholds. I see a lot of streamers who have 1 bit for the alert notification to pop up and maybe even text to speech, and it can be tough. You can feel greedy, but you're like, make it a quarter, make it 100 bits, right? Like if you're going to be reading something out loud, if you're going to be giving real estate on your screen for literal nonsense that anyone can do, yeah, don't set the bar too low. Or at the very least, you know, you can accept their money and not have it pop up. There's actually 2 different thresholds you can set. You can be like, people can give me money versus for whatever amount they want, but it doesn't show up on the screen until it hits a threshold. So you can have a lower minimum and then one above it after that too. And even if your community is good, sometimes their good intentions to troll you with money can just get kind of boring. And you're like, okay, it's not worth reading this for 5 cents. Maybe a quarter, maybe 50 cents. Sure, let's do 50 cents. We'll negotiate back and forth, and that'll be up to you and your community to figure out. But yeah, don't undersell yourself.
As a streamer, you are offering a space of the stream itself that can contain its own abuse or bad actors, and your moderators can't help you with that. So you better sort that out.
All right, let's move to another big question that a lot of people have with their moderators, which is compensation. How do channels typically compensate their moderators? And let's start with LadyAtarka. What has compensation looked like for you for the various channels that you've worked for?
So I will be honest, 99.9% of the streams I moderate for, I don't get compensation for. On occasions, there are like fun little Christmas gifts or holiday gifts, what have you. Definitely a lot of thank yous, but that, you know, just saying thank you is honestly like more than enough. And again, a lot of times we do become friends with the streamers. So like we, you know, hang out in the before times. There are dinners, you know, at GPs, like honestly, like building the friendship has been quite a big deal for me. The caveat is if you do decide to, say, try and moderate for a larger company, maybe look into seeing about actually trying to get compensated for that, because when you do moderate for like a company, it does get really hard and you should be compensated for your time on that one.
LadyAtarka, you keep talking about becoming friends with the streamer, which sounds really cool. One question I've heard a lot is, okay, as a streamer, they're interacting with their mods while streaming and having that friendly relationship and maybe some conversations in Discord before and after. But kind of how much time is a streamer expected to spend with their moderators outside of streaming? Is it something where you're expecting like, oh, if my streamer's not playing video games with me once a week, like they're mean and they're not my friend, or like how much time do you think the streamer needs to spend with their moderators?
I don't really think there is again, I'm saying perfect equation for it, because it does kind of, everyone has their own personality in a way. Like I can go a while without being able to talk to somebody in a friendly manner. Most of the streamers, again, I moderate for, they chat in our mod chat every so often, check in on us. Again, when being able to do gatherings, we would coordinate a gathering and hang out. But it's just kind of a conversation I feel like the streamer and the mod team kind of need to have. Because again, I keep going back to communication. Communication is absolutely key. And also, it's very different from streamer to streamer, to be perfectly honest.
I constantly feel guilty that I'm not able to pay my moderators. I make enough to survive, but I don't make enough to have 12 employees.
Right.
Or, I mean, how many mods do I have right now? And I'm supporting my partner Joe and the work that we do and stuff like that. But 16 mods? I have a lot of mods. And I try and make sure they feel appreciated. God, I feel so guilty in this entire conversation. I'm just sitting here sweating. Some of the things that I have tried to do is special perks. So I do a lot of Minecraft streaming. That's my main game. I've done servers that only the mods can play on. So there's a little bit of multiplayer interaction. When we have base tours at the end, invite them into Discord so they can have the opportunity to sort of like lead me through what they've done, some back and forth on stuff like that, or incorporate, I used to do the modument, which was a special, like a special build just to the mods and had their statues. I haven't done one of those in a while. And you're right, there's some conversation and back and forth, but compensation's so tough because at the end of the day, you are asking people not only for free labor, but to encounter potentially awful online abuse. And like the guilt I have from that, it's tough. It's very tough.
And we get that. Like it kind of is what it is, really. You're not a big company.
So, well, here's a question. At what point does a streamer grow to a certain size where they are basically a company and you would expect to get paid? Because I know some of the biggest streamers do pay their mods. And how would you expect your job to change if you were getting paid for this versus what you do now?
That is a really tough question, actually. Because I don't really moderate myself, or I don't moderate someone who I would consider... I don't want it to sound bad either.
No, that's fair. Like, we'll just say words. We're in a safe space right now. Like, nobody's going to take this personally. I'm not going to get a phone call from Ben being like, I can't believe Atarka said this about me. It's over. Right? Like, yeah, Gabby kicks in the door, right? Like
I personally feel like I don't moderate for someone who would be like big enough to, I feel like, ask for compensation for. Again, I keep going back to I'm just happy having dinner with them and having time with them. I love that. I love to spend time with people. I am very much an extrovert. But like if you're making like hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe consider actually staffing mods.
Most of the examples I've seen of individual streamers, not companies, who pay moderators tend to definitely be on the larger viewership side, where they are able to make enough money to have a full-time streaming career and save up some money as well for retirement, and then go, okay, I'm now making much more than I need to live. Let's either pay the moderators from this or have a week where every donation and all the revenue goes to the moderation team. And I think also there's like, we've talked a lot about socializing with the moderators, having gatherings, that sort of friendship. But there's also, as Serge was saying, other ways to compensate moderators that isn't purely monetarily. If you're getting a bunch of spare game codes or something, you could maybe like, there might be other perks that you're getting from being a streamer that you can share with the moderators.
So the compensation that I've heard of ranges from holiday bonuses, special jackets, one-time gifts, which are all kind of neat. Co-Carnage is in the position now. He used to do, for this month or this period of time, all tips that come in are going to be divided amongst the mods. I believe he's transitioned now that literally every tip that comes into his channel gets sent to the moderators. And but mind you, Ko's viewership is like 10,000 plus concurrent viewer streamer. So I think he's doing okay. And that's that's pretty cool. I wonder if the people, you know, the shrouds and stuff like that, when you have a chat that's just a wall, if the expectation is to work your way up as a community member, or if those large channels are going out and hiring professional moderators. That's a world that I just don't even know where to look for, right?
Yeah, I'm not high up in that status either.
All right, fair enough. Any insight on that, Fuji? Or are we just speculating at this point?
I am not very familiar with Shroud or any super large streamers moderation team. I think at a certain point, people might just give up and not have moderators anymore.
Well, they definitely have mods. Like you see messages being deleted. I can't imagine it's all just automated, right?
I don't think it's all automated, but I think the size of their moderation team, I think it does not scale linearly with viewership. So I don't know what they're doing, honestly.
Well, let us call it there. I want to say thank you so much for watching Just Streaming. LadyAtarka, if people wanted to reach you or say hi to you, is that the sort of thing you'd want to advertise? Where could they find you?
All of my important socials are LadyAtarka. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's mostly my cat pictures. So if you like cute, fluffy kitties, I am your girl.
Fantastic. Of course, I solicit questions before the episodes on Twitter, so you can follow me at Serge Jaeger. You can follow Fuji at Fujiman on Twitter right there. And make sure you watch the video live at Twitch over at twitch.tv/Serge Jaeger. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.